Okay, so we have chosen to evaluate CASA, and my name is Christine.
I'm Joy. My name is Claudia. And I'm Kim.
Okay, so the need of the program or the agency is to help that there's lack of manpower to help the courts and social workers evaluate the youths in the system for their behavior. There's 6,000 children a year that are in crisis. And there's 700 trained advocates through CASA that devote over 120 hours to assist only 900 children.
Background. So CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates for Children. What they do is because due to this manpower shortage, they have advocates to come out and to be there for the children. Where it's a countrywide program. It's by county though. Depending on the county, they sometimes split up. Like they join them together. Sometimes some counties are bigger than others, smaller than others. When a child becomes a dependent of the state is when they have a chance to be part of this program. How they get into the program is usually they are referred by the courts themselves or by the judge to become a CASA candidate to have a CASA. And why? It's because the program itself we have a whole bunch of children who need advocacy. They're dependent of the state. The statistics for the numbers for countrywide is 600,000 children are part of the experienced foster care system, and that's from ages 0 to 18.
Okay, and this is a graph showing between the years 1998 and 2011, and this one right here is the Orange County kids who are in the foster system. And this is the gender. As you guys can see, there's more males in the foster system. And the ethnicity and race, that there's more white, non-Hispanic. It has the highest rate, and the lowest is the Asian Pacific Islanders. The average age for a child in CASA is around 10 years old.
The program inputs, there's the program manager, and they meet monthly with the case supervisor to kind of go over cases. They also keep track of the database and make sure that the employees, as well as the volunteers, are providing all of the information needed on the clients. They hire all personnel, even though there is a low turnover rate, and they facilitate fundraising efforts, and that happens usually once a month. And they can be at different venues. Some are high-end, like at South Coast Plaza, and others may just be like a raffle or some sort. There's also the volunteer coordinator who coordinates training, orientation, and workshops, and that's done monthly. The workshops are monthly, and the training is every other month. She also keeps track of how many hours the volunteers are doing yearly, because to continue to be a volunteer you have to do 12 additional educational hours. There's also the CASA case supervisor, and this is the main support for the CASA. They're kind of on call 24/7, just in case there's an emergency and they need help with what's going on with their child. They attend all court hearings on their caseload, and each case has 2 court hearings a year. They also review the monthly logs from the CASA, and they update the database. And then there's the volunteers, and those are the mentors and advocates, and they're required a minimum of 2 years commitment. They meet with the CASA, their children, two times a month for a few hours. They're required to log and keep track of what they've been doing, also to inform the case supervisors of what's going on. They also have to write a court report 2 times a year for the Superior Court of Orange County, and they have to attend all like really important social service meetings and court hearings.
So the expected outcomes. How many people are helped? There are 4,000 kids in the foster care system where only 900 of them are receiving CASAs. How does CASA measure their presenting problem? they actually have absolutely no means of doing this. So we as evaluators have suggested that they use behavioral assessments. Suggestingly, the Vineland number 2 adaptive behavior skills and the behavior assessment system for children. And what we expect to show is 40% of those children will have improvement, and out of that 40%, 28 of the percent will keep the improvement. And how does CASA measure their outcomes? Again, they have no means of doing this. So the way the evaluators expect to do this is, we suggest that we use the results of the behavioral assessment testings, and then we use a form of the comparison quasi-experiment. So what was just handed out to you was the way the measurements are to be used, which is the Vineland 2 adaptive behavioral scales. That'll just, what that paper that we passed out will give you a little bit more than what I'm gonna tell you. It's just a survey of intake of the parent or the caregivers, and they also do an expanded interview form. And then also it's a teacher rating form on the kids' behaviors. Then on the BASC2, the Behavioral Assessment System for Children, that is basically a self-rating. It actually does have the teachers, the parents, and the students. When at ages 6 to 21, they will be able to do the rating for themselves. Now, why as evaluators are we asking them to do that? The reason is to show that there is productivity with the children using the CASAs, and then also the evidence for the social workers and the courts to see that there is behavioral change before, after, and without a CASA.
Our dependent and independent variables. Our dependent variables will be the behaviors we'll be testing, and the independent variables we'll be testing as the workshops the CASAs go to with their with their mentors, the mentoring program, the tutoring that the CASA sometimes provide, the visits with the CASA who are actually paid by the CASA, like the CASA puts out their own money for these visits, and then the advocating for the courts.
And the test we used was the quasi-comparison group. The reason we chose this test was because this would show if CASA had an effect on these children, then they would show a higher rate as a result on this test. And the reason we didn't choose any other group, like single group design, was because we needed 2 groups to compare in order to show the effectiveness of CASA. And a true experiment requires randomization, and we couldn't do that with our CASA because they're all from the court system, so it wasn't randomized. Some of the validity threats were the history, the age, and the gender, maturity. The age was, there would be a significant difference between a 5-year-old that's in CASA and an 18-year-old. As with the history, like depending on their background, what they've been through, and the maturity level that they're at, they're gonna have, CASA will have a different impact on them.
And the results from our evaluation, this was those who had a CASA, and we compared them with those who opted out of having a CASA, and there really wasn't anything statistically significant. But when we compared the ones that had CASAs and the ones that have never had CASAs, we did feel that there was a statistical significance. Our recommendations on how the evaluation could be better would, we would hope that in the future they would look at something other than just behavior and also do a pre-test and post-test on that. Maybe just academics or even social skills, something. We thought maybe a longer period of observation would be good, and we definitely thought breaking people up into subgroups, maybe maturity, the history, the reason why they were in the system, the age, gender, ethnicity, race, and socioeconomic status would all kind of play into that. To make the program better, as we did before, we still feel that they need to utilize that kitchen that they have in their office. And we think there should be more volunteers. There's over 200 kids currently that are on the wait list just for Orange County alone. And the program, it's a really great program, and we thought it'd be better if it was open to all kids, any kid that wanted a mentor or advocate. And currently there's no financial money to give to the volunteers, and we thought maybe they could do something to give them a monthly stipend, which would increase the people that could actually volunteer, because everything does come out of pocket. And definitely they need to have some hardcore elevation to show the program outcomes. Does anybody have any questions?